wakasikilizana, wakasema hello hello Tanzania. Ndugu wa damu, tusibadili mwenendo, tulinde tudumishe Tanzania. Kwa machozi na jasho, tukaze na mwendo, Sawani
Quelqu'un m'entend? Oui, oui, ici c'est la RDC. Je vous reçois à 5 sur 5. Oui. Je suis sur le canal français et j'ai coupé l'audio original. Je voudrais confirmer aussi qu'on va écouter le son de la salle quand on va commencer à chanter les hymnes. Ok. C'est bon alors, merci beaucoup. Ok, merci.
Wakasikilizana, wakasema hello hello Tanzania. Ndugu wa damu, tusibadili mwenendo, tulinde tudumishe Tanzania. Kwa machozi na jasho, tukaze na mwendo, tuiwaze kesho ya ndugu zetu wadogo. Nchi yetu ni urithi wetu, zawadi ya pekee, tuitunze. Nchi yangu ni uhai wangu,
Testing, testing. A very good morning, distinguished delegates. As you can see from the screen, their excellencies are taking their group photo. After that, they're going to come straight into the meeting room. So if we could just take positions, let's be by our seats. And I will request that as they walk in, we're all going to rise, and then we'll be directed on the next processes. Thank you. Shall we please rise as their excellencies are walking in? And I will request that we remain standing. We will remain standing after all their excellencies have positioned. We're going to have the anthems by the Tanzania brass band. I'm not seeing the brass band in the room. Are they coming to sing from here or outside? Okay, they are walking in. As soon as all their excellencies are on their seats, we're going to have the anthems in this order, beginning with the anthem of the United Republic of Tanzania, followed by the anthem of the East African Community, and the anthem of the Southern African Development Community. I think all their excellencies are on their seats. I'll request that we proceed into the anthem. Brass band, thank you. United Republic of Tanzania anthem, followed by East African Community anthem and SADC anthem. Thank you. We may be seated, Your Excellencies. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, a very good morning to you all. My name is Barbara Lopi from the Southern African Development Community Secretariat. I'm humbled this morning to be directing the opening ceremony of this meeting. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, allow me at this point to just introduce the excellencies who are participating in this meeting or their representatives. We are here for the joint summit of heads of states and government of the East African Community and the Southern African Development Community. Allow me to then, before I proceed in introducing their excellencies, I just want to provide information on the language channels for the equipment that is being used for us to communicate and listen to the discussions. The English language is on channel 1 of the gadgets that we have. French language is on channel 2, and Portuguese is on channel 3, and Kiswahili is on channel 4. I'll go straight into introduction of their excellencies or representatives that are participating in this meeting. I'll begin with our host, our gracious host this morning, Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Shall we please put our hands together for Her Excellency? Thank you. Up here we have His Excellency Dr. William Samuel Ruto, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya and Chairperson of the East African Community. Up here, we also have His Excellency Dr. Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Chairperson of SADC, Southern African Development Community. We do have participating online His Excellency Felix Antoine Tshisekedi Chilombo, President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. His Excellency Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, President of the Federal Republic of Somalia. His Excellency Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda. His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda. His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, President of the Republic of Zambia. In our midst, we also have His Excellency, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mohammed. We have His Excellency General Gervais Ndirakubusha, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Burundi, representing His Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi. We have His Excellency Ambassador Tete Antonio, Minister of External Relations, Republic of Angola, representing the President, His Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, President of Republic of Angola. We have Honorable Deng Alo Kuo, Minister of East African Community Affairs of the Republic of Sudan, representing His Excellency Salva Kiir Mayarditi, President of the Republic of Sudan. We have Honorable Nancy Gladys Tembo, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Malawi, representing His Excellency Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, President of the Republic of Malawi. We have the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Mula, representing His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa. We have Honorable Lieutenant General Lala Monja Delphine Sahivelo, Minister of the Armed Forces in the Republic of Madagascar, representing His Excellency Andry Rajoelina, President of the Republic of Madagascar. Those were their excellencies, and up here we have the Honorable Professor Amon Muwira, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Chairperson of the SADC Council of Ministers. Up here we also have His Excellency the Right Honorable Dr. Musahila Mudavadi, Prime Cabinet and Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Republic of Kenya, and Head of the East African Community Delegation of Ministerial Session. I would like to recognize all the honorable ministers and the deputies in the room. And up here, I would like to recognize the Secretary General of the East African Community, Her Excellency, my apologies. Let me start by recognizing His Excellency Mr. Elias Mahosi, the Executive Secretary of SADC, and Her Excellency Madame Veronica Nduva, CBS Secretary General of the East African Community. Apologies, my sister, I forgot your name, but I have it. Senior officials from all SADC member states represented here, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome. Our program will be as follows. We are going to have welcome remarks from our host president, Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania. This will be followed by the statements from the chairpersons from the East African Community and the Southern African Development Community. I will present their name after Her Excellency gives us the welcome remarks. Your Excellency, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Dr. Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Chairperson of SADC. Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya and Chairperson of East African Community. Fellow heads of state and government from EAC and SADC partner state and member states. Honorable Ministers, Honorable Veronica Nduva, Secretary General of East African Community, Your Excellency Mr. Elias Mpedi Magosi, the SADC Executive Secretary, distinguished delegates, good morning. It gives me a great pleasure and honor to welcome you all to the United Republic of Tanzania, and more specifically to the city of Dar es Salaam, the haven of peace, for this crucial joint EAC SADC summit convened to deliberate on the prevailing security situation in the Eastern DRC. Tanzania is profoundly honored to host this high-level meeting and remains eternally committed to the objective of promoting peace and security within the region and beyond. Similarly, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Executive Secretary of East African Community and SADC and their entire teams for effectively coordinating this meeting within a short time. Excellencies, as we are all aware, DRC, a member of both the EAC and SADC,
is still facing prolonged conflicts whose impact has transcended its borders and so creating far-reaching effects in neighboring countries. For the last couple of weeks, we have witnessed the spread of violence that has caused massive harm to human life, human displacement, and insecurity, which affected economic activities and disrupted cross-border trades. As regional leaders, history will judge us harshly
if we remain still and watch the situation worsen day by day. And in line with the principle of African solutions for Africa's problems, our countries have a collective responsibility to ensure we urgently address the existing security challenges that have heavily impacted the well-being of innocent civilians. This joint summit meeting presents an opportunity to recommit our collective efforts in addressing the conflicts and reaffirm our sustainable peace and stability in the entire EAC and SADC regions. It is crucial that we find a durable solution that upholds sovereignty, promotes inclusivity, and ensures that the people of DRC can enjoy durable peace and security that they have been yearned for decades. Excellencies, as a steadfast advocate for peace in Africa, Tanzania is deeply concerned about the persistent insecurity in eastern DRC. The ongoing conflict not only destabilizes our brotherly nation, but also put serious dents on our consistent efforts to enhance regional integration. My country remains committed to supporting ongoing diplomatic initiatives to end conflicts in eastern DRC, and so we call on all parties involved in the DRC conflict to positively engage in negotiations, prioritize the well-being of its people, and commit to peaceful coexistence. Excellencies, our gathering here in Dar es Salaam should be an opportunity for us to have serious reflections and engage constructively on what needs to be done to assist our fellow member states in addressing security challenges. Despite the woven complexity of the matter we are dealing with, we should be confident that this meeting will come up with concrete proposals and measures to urgently address the existing challenges so as to avoid an impending humanitarian catastrophe. As active members of EAC and SADC, we have to remain resolute in our quest to see peaceful and stable regional blocs with our countries standing tall and harmoniously coexisting. It is therefore my humble request to you, my colleagues, let us be united in our efforts to end violence, foster stability, and create an environment where peace, security, and development can thrive. With these few remarks, I once again extend my warmest welcome to all of you and wish you productive deliberation. Asante sana, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, obrigado. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, President of the United Republic of Tanzania. I would like to make an apology to the Republic of South Sudan. I think in my presentation I slipped off and omitted the South. Honorable Den Aloykuo, Minister of East African Community Affairs, he's from Republic of South Sudan. Thank you. The next presentation will be remarks from the co-chairpersons of this joint summit of East African Community and Southern African Development Community Summit. The co-chairpersons will be His Excellency Dr. William Samuel Ruto, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya and Chairperson of East African Community. And the co-chair is His Excellency Dr. Emmerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Chairperson of SADC. So we're going to start with remarks from His Excellency Dr. William Samuel Ruto, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya and Chairperson of the East African Community. Their Excellencies will deliver their remarks from that podium. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency and Co-Chair, Dr. Emmerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, Chairperson of SADC and President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government of the East African Community and SADC member states, Ministers responsible for Foreign Affairs and External Relations of EAC and SADC, Secretary Generals of SADC and EAC, distinguished delegates, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. I will take this very early opportunity to sincerely thank my dear sister, Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, for hosting this joint summit. After extensive consultations, when I requested her to host this summit, without hesitation, she offered these excellent facilities for us to engage in this exercise. My dear sister, thank you very much. We're truly grateful. Equally important, I appreciate the efforts made by the two regions through their respective communities to mobilize with urgency and convene separate extraordinary summits in order to deliberate on the concerning security situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Excellencies, together, we find ourselves standing face to face with a grave and protracted security, diplomatic, and humanitarian crisis in DRC, a situation that demands our immediate, collective, and sustained attention. The East region of DRC has been engulfed in a devastating conflict for over 2 decades now, and this tragedy has claimed thousands of lives, displaced countless civilians, inflicted unbearable suffering and loss, and set back the development momentum of one of the most promising countries in the world. The recent escalation of hostilities in Goma and the surrounding areas is a stark reminder of the increasing fragility the situation presents, and that only collective action to facilitate a negotiated solution will offer relief. Today, we join together in order to reiterate our calls to the parties to this tragic conflict to immediately cease hostilities and take positive action to allow meaningful dialogue aimed at restoration of stability. Specifically, we stand together to call on all parties to actualize the ceasefire, and specifically on the M23 to hold further advancement and the armed forces of DRC to cease all retaliatory measures. An immediate ceasefire is the only way by which we can create necessary conditions for constructive dialogue and implementation of a comprehensive peace agreement. As members of the African Union and United Nations, we stand bound by fundamental principles of respect for the territorial integrity and sovereignty of nations and the principle of good neighborliness. These twin principles are the surest safeguards for the realization of peaceful coexistence. Equally, as responsible members of the international community are bound by the obligation to ensure the safety of diplomatic assets, civilians, and personnel, as well as peacekeepers within our countries. The wanton disregard for the sanctity of life, diplomatic missions, and peacekeeping, and peacekeepers as well, is not only a brazen demonstration of lawless and unprincipled pursuit of violent harm and destruction, it is a grave affront to the rules-based international order. Excellencies, our presence here underscores our consensus that the time for action is now. The lives of millions depends on our ability to navigate this complex and challenging situation with wisdom, clarity of mind, empathy for the millions whose lives and livelihoods have been plunged into uncertainty, concerns for DRC's lost opportunity to accelerate its growth and development, and a steadfast commitment to peace and justice. A terrible yet indisputable act is that the humanitarian cost of the conflict in the DRC has been staggering. Millions of civilians have been displaced and many lives under the persistent threat of violence, including sexual and gender-based violence against women and children, and the recruitment of children to take part in combat. We have a historic opportunity to rise to our moral duty of making the protection of civilians our foremost priority, and of taking measures to ensure that the necessary resources and support are provided. For many well-known reasons, the situation in DRC implicates the broader global community. Therefore, we call upon the international community to step up and do its part in supporting regional efforts in delivering for the DRC, and critically collaborating with the government of the DRC to deliver support and security to those most in need. It is clear that the conflict in DRC is complex, delicate, protracted, and involves multiple actors pursuing different interests. The issues at stake span a wide historical, economic, and political spectrum, run back in time for many decades, and spill across national and regional borders. There is also a clandestine international dimension at work, whose persistent, cynical, and destructive effects must neither be underestimated or ignored any longer. For this reason, it is equally clear that such a conflict cannot be resolved through military means. We must resist the temptation to think that we can somehow shoot or bombard our way into a solution in the face of such a complex situation. Instead, we have to agree that only a comprehensive diplomatic approach, one that addresses the root causes of the crisis, secures the historical integrity and territorial integrity of DRC, and affirms the sovereignty of its people and their aspirations for freedom, justice, and development. That is what will establish peace, and enduring peace at that, in DRC. Such an approach must also bring together multiple stakeholders, regional states, international bodies, political organizations, civil society groups, and the Congolese government itself to dialogue and collaborate in order to explore, develop, and implement a lasting solution.
Excellencies, I am confident that you agree with me that dialogue is not a sign of weakness. It is a testament to our collective wisdom and strength, both as leaders and as communities. It shows our capacity to articulate issues patiently and clearly, listen to each other, consult comprehensively with a common goal in mind, and negotiate patiently
until we reach a better outcome than the bitter results of bloodshed. It is in this spirit that we must encourage all parties to put aside their differences and mobilize for engagement in constructive dialogue aimed at achieving the sustainable solution of conflict by peacefully addressing all underlying issues. I believe that we have a singular opportunity to build on the gains and lessons of Luanda and Nairobi peace processes. We have a historic opportunity as the broader neighborhood of the DRC to mobilize our collective will into a fused, single, and coherent initiative towards the resolution of this complex crisis. Such an approach will bring all our assets to bear and minimize the possibility of parallel initiatives that duplicate and undermine progress, including creating unnecessary competition as we strive for peace. My dear brothers and sisters, this calls for our unwavering political support. I therefore urge Your Excellencies at this extraordinary joint summit to deploy our best effort and muster our total commitment to facilitate a sustainable settlement that lays the foundation for a stable and prosperous Democratic Republic of Congo. I dare say, Excellencies, the situation may be complex, it may be protracted, it may have been with us for years, but I believe the situation in the DRC can be solved, should be solved, and must be solved. For this reason, it may also be prudent for the consolidated single EAC SADC initiative on this matter to be supported by a strong secretariat that can provide the necessary coordination, monitoring, and enforcement to ensure effective implementation of outcomes. The international community must stand in solidarity with the people of DRC during this time by aligning their support with this initiative. I conclude, Excellencies, by affirming our robust commitment to achieving sustainable peace and development and integration across the region. The security of DRC is essential not only for the stability of the country, but also to the prosperity and cohesion of the entire EAC and SADC. We call upon all parties to prioritize dialogue, cooperation, and above all, the protection of civilian lives. I thank you once again for being able to be here on this very important mission. It is a historic mission because for the first time, two regional economic blocs come together as a testament of the seriousness of the challenge we face, but also underscoring our commitment to provide leadership to resolve this issue. Thank you very much. May the Almighty God bless all of you and bless our region. Asanteni sana, merci beaucoup, meilleur obrigado. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Dr. William Samuel Ruto, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya, and chairperson of the East African Community. We're now going to have another statement from His Excellency Dr. Emmerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, who is co-chair to this meeting, and chairperson of the Southern African Development Community. Your Excellency, you may proceed to deliver your remarks. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Mr. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya and Chairperson of the East African Community and Co-Chair of this summit. Your Excellency, Dr. Samia Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania and Chairperson of the Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation. Your Excellencies, heads of state and government from our regional bodies, honorable ministers who are here, the SADC Executive Secretary, His Excellency Elias Magosi, the EAC Secretary General, His Excellency Mrs. Veronica Ndua, comrades and friends. It is my distinct honor and privilege to make these remarks of welcome to this historic gathering. Firstly, may I express heartfelt gratitude to you, my dear sister and colleague, Your Excellency, President Dr. Samia Hassan, along with the government and people of the United Republic of Tanzania, for the warm welcome and gracious hospitality extended to my delegation since our arrival in this beautiful city of Dar es Salaam. In the same spirit, I also extend sincere appreciation to my dear brother, Your Excellency, President William Ruto, for your astute leadership for the East African community and for agreeing to meet at short notice. Equally, our respective secretariats, senior officials and Council of Ministers are commended for their diligent work in preparation for this joint summit. Your efforts have laid a solid foundation for our discussions today. Allow me, on behalf of SADC, the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe, and indeed on my own behalf, to once again convey heartfelt condolences and deepest sympathies to the member states and families of the brave peacekeepers who lost their lives in the service of the people of DRC and indeed the cause of peace. We also recognize the loss of civilian lives and livelihoods that has resulted from the increased insecurity and insurgency in Eastern DRC. Our prayers continue to be made for the affected families and the communities. Your Excellencies, this historic summit of our two regional blocs is testament to our shared commitment to the founding values of the African Union. Such joint initiatives must see us scale up bold and decisive actions to silence the guns on our continent, but most immediately implement lasting solution to the escalating conflict and humanitarian crisis in the Eastern DRC. Undoubtedly, ongoing instability, growing hostilities, and the ever-increasing number of internally displaced persons in the Eastern DRC has far-reaching consequences, not only for the people of DRC alone, but also for our regions and the African continent as a whole. The unity, solidarity, and unbreakable bonds of the peoples of the continent must stand the test of such trying times as we face. We must remain as solidly united as we were during the struggle for complete emancipation and independence of Africa from colonialism. We thus have a duty and a collective responsibility to comprehensively, frankly, tackle and address the various challenges that are impeding the realization of peace and security for the people of Eastern DRC. Drawing from our rich African values and heritage, and further emboldened by the spirit and letter of the United Nations Charter, the Constitutive Act of the African Union, as well as the treaties of both SADC and the EAC, let us seize this opportunity to ensure convergency and a coordinated response which is mutually reinforcing towards one common objective. I thus challenge all of us to approach the agenda before us with openness, honesty, flexibility, and commitment to building a lasting peace for Mother Africa. The all-encompassing interests of the people of the DRC must be at the core of our deliberations. Let us do much more to realize sustainable peace in our sister republic of the DRC in our lifetime. To date, SADC notes and acknowledges the progress made under the Luanda and Nairobi processes aimed at silencing the guns, as well as facilitating dialogue among all parties to the conflict. This summit, therefore, should leap us forward towards a concrete roadmap to help resolve the ongoing crisis. As the leaders entrusted to nurture and facilitate unity, peace and development in this era, we cannot let the peoples of our regions down. Their hope is in us here. The SADC bloc remains unwavering and committed to continue playing its part. With these remarks, I wish the summit fruitful deliberations. I thank you. Asante sana, tatenda.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Dr. Emmerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Chairperson of the Southern African Development Community. We are getting to the end of the official opening ceremony. May I please request that we have 2 rounds of applause for our co-chairpersons for those statements. Thank you. This marks the end of the official opening ceremony, which was open to the media and the invited guests. At this point, we will allow the members of the press to be excused and leave the room so that we allow their excellencies to deliberate on the agenda. The meeting participation is 1+5. Again, we will request delegations that were invited to the official opening, but who are outside the 5 configuration to be excused. As the media is exiting,
welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Trump's imposed sanctions on the International Criminal Court over its war crimes investigations against Israel. The executive order issued Thursday accuses the ICC of engaging in, quote, illegitimate and baseless actions targeting America and our close ally Israel, unquote. It also says the ICC abused its power when it issued, quote, baseless arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant over war crimes and crimes against humanity, reiterating, quote, the ICC has no jurisdiction over the United States or Israel, unquote. Trump's action coincided with Netanyahu's visit to Capitol Hill Thursday, where he met with leaders of both parties. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson said he was caught off guard by Trump's proposal and was awaiting details, but nonetheless praised it.
Look, there'll be more details forthcoming on that, of course. The initial announcement yesterday, I think, was greeted by surprise by many, but cheered by, I think, people all around the world. Why? Because that area is so dangerous, and he's taking bold, decisive action to try to ensure the peace of that region.
Human rights groups and many world leaders have condemned the United States for welcoming Netanyahu and refusing to serve the ICC arrest warrant against him. Reed Brody is a veteran war crimes prosecutor.
Well, of course, this decision was expected, but nevertheless, it really threatens to undermine international accountability for the worst crimes and deprive victims all across the globe of justice. This executive order puts the United States on the side of war criminals at the expense of victims of grave crimes seeking justice.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gifted Trump a golden pager during their meeting at the White House, referencing Israel's deadly booby trap attacks on Lebanon in September, which killed dozens of people and injured thousands more, when thousands of pagers blew up at the same time. President Trump is doubling down on his proposal for the United States to seize Gaza, saying the besieged territory would be, quote, turned over to the U.S. by Israel after it concludes its war. Trump made the remarks on Truth Social, writing, quote, the Palestinians would have already been resettled in far safer and more beautiful communities with new and modern homes in the region. They would actually have a chance to be happy, safe, and free. No soldiers by the U.S. would be needed, unquote, Trump wrote. The Wall Street Journal reported Pentagon officials have received no formal request to draft a plan for U.S. troop deployment to Gaza. Meanwhile, even some Republicans have come out in opposition, including Senator Lindsey Graham, who said other Senate Republicans oppose sending U.S. troops to Gaza. Residents of Gaza compared Trump's plan to the 1948 Nakba and the violent displacement of Palestinians from their land over the past decades.
I believe that this plan is destined to fail. Why? Because since the occupation of Palestine in 1948, this project has been proposed by occupiers and nations that support occupation regarding the issue of displacing the population of the Gaza Strip, but failed due to the steadfastness of our people in the face of this decision. Of course, the occupation will also fail in this war of extermination that began on October 7th, 2023.
Israel continues to violate the ceasefire agreement as Israeli soldiers shot dead 2 Palestinians, including a child, in southern Gaza on Wednesday. The White House says President Trump plans to keep only 294 staff at the U.S. Agency for International Development out of the agency's total of over 10,000 workers around the world, cutting the staff by about 97%. The remaining USAID workers would include just 12 in the Africa Bureau, 8 in the Asia Bureau. This comes after Trump earlier this week ordered nearly the entire USAID staff to be placed on administrative leave beginning today, and ordered thousands of personnel working overseas to return to the U.S. USAID distributed nearly $44 billion in aid during fiscal year 2023, about 3 of every 5 foreign assistance dollars worldwide. The Senate's voted 53 to 47 along party lines to confirm Russell Vought, head of the Office of Management and Budget. Vought is an architect of Project 2025, a radical playbook to seize executive power and to radically reshape federal agencies. Last year, Vought told undercover reporters his plans for mass deportations, restricting abortion, gutting independent government bureaucracies, and using the military against racial justice protesters. Vought also said he would work to paint federal workers as villains and, quote, put them in trauma in order to drastically reduce the size of the federal civilian workforce. This is Democratic Senator Angela Alsobrooks of Maryland, who represents over 150,000 federal workers.
They are public servants in the truest sense of the word, who are not guided by party, not moved by vicious news cycles, but they are driven instead by mission. A mission to serve this country to the very best of their ability, under any president of any party. And in just 17 days, this president has put all of their livelihoods on the line. How shameless, how reckless, how callous, how depraved.
On Thursday, a federal judge temporarily blocked the Trump administration's so-called deferred resignation program, offering 8 months' pay and salary to any government worker replying to a mass email sent out by Elon Musk's Doge operation. The judge will revisit the case Monday. The Wall Street Journal reports 25-year-old Doge staff member Marco Ellis, who gained access to the Treasury Department's central payment system, resigned Thursday after he was linked to a deleted social media account that advocated racism and eugenics and said, normalize Indian hate. In another apparent breach of sensitive data, CNN reports Energy Secretary Chris Wright granted a 23-year-old former SpaceX intern and Doge staffer access to the Energy Department's IT system. On his social media site, X, Elon Musk has threatened reprisals, including journalists, after Wired magazine named 6 of his young associates at Doge who are between the ages of 19 and 26. Meanwhile, the White House is preparing an executive order to cut thousands of jobs at the Department of Health and Human Services, including positions at the CDC and FDA. This comes after as several dairy herds in Nevada have just tested positive for a new variant of the H5N1 bird flu virus, raising fresh concerns of a spillover into human populations and a new pandemic. More than 1,000 people gathered for a protest outside the Treasury Department in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday afternoon, denouncing what they called a breach of secure information by Elon Musk and his young associates. The protests came as the Trump administration said it would close the Environmental Protection Agency's Environmental Justice Office and place 168 workers on leave. Meanwhile, lawmakers, including Arizona Congressmember Yasemin Ansari, were denied access as they tried to enter the EPA's headquarters Thursday.
In Phoenix, last year we saw 143 days above 100-degree temperatures. Hundreds of people die on our streets every summer as a result of extreme heat. We also have some of the worst air pollution in the country that we're working to combat. And these attacks on the Environmental Protection Agency cannot stand.
In more Trump cabinet news, the Senate voted 55-44 Wednesday to confirm Scott Turner as Department of Housing and Urban Development Secretary, despite concerns his FBI background check had not been completed. Turner is a former developer and NFL player who's expected to slash the department's multi-billion-dollar budget and overhaul affordable housing vouchers as well as programs for unhoused people. Turner's the only African-American member of Trump's cabinet. President Trump's nominated retired Brigadier General Anthony J. Tata, known for his history of Islamophobic and other racist remarks, to a senior Pentagon post charged with overseeing deployments. Tata once called President Obama a terrorist leader. This comes as the Trump administration on Tuesday evicted former Coast Guard Commandant Linda Fagan from her home with 3 hours' notice, without enough time to even gather her personal belongings. She's a 4-star admiral and the first woman to lead a branch of the military. She was removed from her post on Trump's second day in office. Homeland Security Department officials cited Fagan's, quote, excessive focus on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Education Department has announced investigations against 2 universities and a high school sports league for allowing transgender athletes to compete in women's sports. The agency, which Trump has vowed to dismantle, will be probing the University of Pennsylvania and San Jose State University, claiming the institutions have violated civil rights laws over their policies supporting trans athletes in college teams. Meanwhile, trans rights activists are condemning the National Collegiate Athletic Association after its board voted to ban trans women from sports, caving to Trump's executive order, which directs federal agencies to withhold funding for schools that do not comply. The World Meteorological Organization reports January was the warmest since records began, reaching 1.75 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. The January data was a surprise to many scientists, coming despite La Niña conditions that tend to cool the globe. On Sunday, temperatures at the North Pole soared above the freezing point of ice, reaching 36 degrees Fahrenheit above normal for the date. This week, staffers with Elon Musk's Doge operation entered the headquarters of NOAA. That's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, to access IT systems. They're also reviewing the agency's diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. NOAA's National Marine Fisheries Service has ordered its scientists to stop all contact with foreign colleagues and contacts, including on international treaties and seafood catch limits. Meanwhile, President Trump has nominated Neil Jacobs to reprise his role as acting administrator of NOAA. An investigation found Jacobs violated NOAA's Code of Ethics in 2019 after defending Trump's false claim that Hurricane Dorian would hit Alabama, the so-called Sharpiegate scandal. The California Public Utilities Commission has received video and data evidence strongly suggesting high-voltage transmission lines operated by the electric power company Southern California Edison were responsible for igniting the Eaton fire, which killed 17 people last month as it swept through the historically black neighborhood of Altadena, destroying 9,400 homes, schools, businesses, and other structures. On Thursday, mourners gathered at First AME Church of Pasadena for a memorial service service honoring fire victims. Community members and civil rights leaders are demanding the same federal resources for recovery that LA's most affluent neighborhoods are receiving. They're also warning against shortchanging by insurance companies. Joining the call is Zaire Calvin, who became separated from his sister, Evelyn McClendo, on January 9th as he evacuated the fire with his baby and elderly mother. He returned to find his sister's remains in the rubble of her home.
We want to be made whole. Black people always end up last. I'm just going to say it now. We always end up last. Can we just be first in line in this?
This week, the insurance giant State Farm has asked California regulators to approve a rate hike that would see the average homeowner pay 22% more for their premiums. In 2023, State Farm said it would no longer accept new applications for property insurance in California. And last year, it cut 72,000 home and apartment policies across California, citing inflation and, quote, catastrophe exposure. And in India, lawmakers held a protest outside the parliament Thursday, outraged by reports that some 100 Indian immigrants from the United States were kept in shackles during a 40-hour U.S. deportation flight back to India, including during bathroom breaks. This comes days before Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to meet President Trump at the White House. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We look now at some of the new legal hurdles facing Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, as it tries to dismantle and restructure, as it says, multiple federal agencies. On Thursday, a lawsuit by a coalition of labor unions prompted the Labor Department to agree not to release any sensitive economic and privacy data to DOGE. The agency holds sensitive data, likely including worker complaints against Musk and his companies. The lawsuit argues, quote, DOGE seeks to gain access to sensitive systems before courts can stop them, dismantle agencies before Congress can assert its prerogatives in the federal budget, and intimidate and threaten employees who stand in their way. The results have already been catastrophic. DOGE has seized control of some of the most carefully protected information systems housed at the Treasury Department, taken hold of all sensitive personnel information at the Office of Personnel Management, and dismantled an entire agency within a week. A full hearing on the case is set for today. This comes as a similar lawsuit filed this week resulted in another agreement Thursday to stop DOGE from accessing millions of sensitive personal and financial records from the Treasury Department. The case was filed by Public Citizen on behalf of the American Federation of Government Employees, the Service Employees International Union, and the Alliance for Retired Americans. For more, we're joined by two guests. In Washington, D.C., Robert Weissman is with us, co-president of Public Citizen, which is also sued to stop the Trump administration's attack on the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. And in Arlington, Virginia, Rob Shriver is with us, senior advisor to Democracy Forward, which filed the lawsuit over Labor Department data on behalf of a coalition of labor unions. Until days ago, he was the acting director of the Office of Personnel Management under the Biden administration. Welcome you both to Democracy Now! Rob Shriver, let's begin with you. Is Elon Musk committing crimes here?
So, Amy, it remains to be seen. But I think what we know right now is there are huge problems with what Elon Musk and his team are doing to access the most critical personal data that this country owns. There are processes in place that protect that data from public disclosure, that make sure that it's used appropriately and not to engage in retribution or gain competitive advantages. And I think the complaint that Democracy Forward filed on behalf of 4 million workers lays out in great detail the risk and the harm that is already happening.
Talk about the information that is at risk here and the young men 19 to 26, who used to work for SpaceX or X or Tesla, Elon Musk's private companies, who have access to this information?
Yeah, I think that latter part is incredibly alarming. We don't know if these individuals are employees of the government. We don't know if they've gone through any vetting process. The background investigation process is not just some technical HR thing that people get annoyed about. It's meant to determine whether people are subject to blackmail or foreign agents or of such questionable character that they can't be trusted with sensitive data. So to bypass that process, which if that happened would be a huge problem, we need to know, the American people need to know what has happened to get these people access. And then the types of data that you're talking about include personally identifiable information, personal health records, data about workers' compensation claims, data about Elon Musk's competitors, and some of the data that our economy relies upon to be reported out objectively and without political interference.
Can you tell us what the agency that you were in charge of, the Office of Personnel Management, I mean, it sounds so bureaucratic, it's hard for people to identify with it, what the information you held there is and why it's so threatening? And can you talk, for example, about Medicaid?
Sure. So OPM is essentially the HR agency of the federal government. It issues HR policy. It manages and processes retirements for federal employees. It also manages the largest group health insurance program in the world, the Federal Employee Health Benefits Program. So in order to carry out all of those functions, which, by the way, are largely nonpartisan, right? Like most of the time, OPM spends like just processing these retirement applications, managing health insurance, largely nonpartisan. But to carry out those missions, it has data on millions and millions of Americans, not just the 2.3 million active federal employees, but also the millions more retirees, the 8 million people who are enrolled in the Federal Employee Health Benefit Program, which includes federal employees, their family members, some of the highest ranking officials in government, including members of Congress. So all of that data is housed at OPM and subject to very strict rules and controls for who gets to access it, for what purpose. There are immense cybersecurity protections because the country may remember a large data breach in 2015 involving OPM that exposed millions of records of federal employees and family members. And as a result of that, there are extensive protections in place to prevent something like that from happening again.
I want to go to Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey, who is with Congress members Paul Tonko and Yasmin Ansari, turned away from EPA headquarters. This is Senator Markey speaking at a news conference outside the EPA after they were denied entry.
We just went in and asked for a meeting with the DOJ representatives. We were denied. We were turned away. And we just had a couple of simple questions for them. Are they still freezing EPA funding for all of the clean air and clean water programs in our country? Are they blocking the important work which the EPA does on a daily basis to protect the people in our country, the families of our country? And they did not give us the answers in the same way that they are not giving the answers to every other program in our country. Medicaid, Medicare, the Affordable Care Act, all of those health and environmental programs that are so central to the well-being of every family in our country. Trump and Elon Musk and their unqualified, unelected, unwanted henchmen want to be able to carry out their attacks on your environment, your rights, your friends, your neighbors, under the cover of darkness. So we're outside asking them to step out into the light of day.
So that's Massachusetts Senator Markey. standing outside the EPA. He's stopped from going inside. Agencies like this, I mean, we're talking about Treasury Department as well, senators and Congress member, police stopping them from moving in. But the Doge kids, right, 19, 20, 21, 22, they're moving in. How much information they're getting is not clear. I want to bring Rob Weissman into this conversation. Robert Weissman is head of Public Citizen. Can you talk about this, what is happening right now, and what your lawsuit is all about?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I think the broad story is that Elon Musk and his acolytes are on an authoritarian rampage through the government. It's only sort of ideological. It may be serving his business interests, we don't know. But it's designed to access information, surveil the country, destroy the institutions of government, and advance corporate interests without restraint. I think for Elon Musk, it's fair to say he views this all as a kind of fun video game that he's going to play for a little while, then walk away. It's been reported that the White House doesn't actually know what Musk is doing in detail, but is fine. They have a kind of plausible deniability. When things go really wrong, then they pull it back in and tell him, don't do that again. So we are really in a dangerous time. We're going to have to rely at first on the courts to restrain this. That's what the Democracy Forward lawsuit's about. It's what we've done at the Department of Treasury, where we were able to get an order yesterday restraining Doge from accessing information at the Treasury Department, although still allowing 2 Musk acolytes inside the Treasury Department to get access to that information, now down to 1 because of the resignation you referenced earlier. This information is people's tax data. It's the government's payment data. So it's almost everyone in the country, personal information, income, and more, access to information about government payees. And it's not just that they want to see the information. It's clear and been reported that their desire is to be able to cut off payments to people and organizations and corporations, contractors, whatever, that are due payment through through congressionally appropriated money, through contractually obligated money, just to cut it off. That's their version of efficiency. It has nothing to do with efficiency. It's all about authoritarian imposition. And by the way, eventually people who lose money are going to be paid. So the idea that they're saving money is a lie. They're going to be costing money, even in the direct sense, beyond the massive harm they're going to inflict in this country and around the world.
Rob Weissman, Public Citizen recently filed a complaint with the Department of Justice urging an examination into whether FBI Director nominee Kash Patel should have registered under FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Explain why.
Well, in the course of seeking a nomination for a position like Director of the FBI, individuals are required to make all kinds of disclosures. That's considered by the Senate as part of the confirmation process. Kash Patel did not disclose to the Senate in time for his consideration, for his confirmation hearings, that he had been paid by the government of Qatar to do work. We don't know exactly what. That information has now come out. There's a question first why it wasn't disclosed, and that the Senate should be able to ask him, what were you doing, and consider whether it wants to confirm as head of the FBI someone who is a paid agent for a foreign country. There's also the non-trivial legal matter that you're required to register when you work for foreign governments, which Kash Patel did not do. Now, an extra interesting twist in this is the new Attorney General, Pam Bondi, also worked for Qatar. She did follow the requirements and register under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. But in her first day in office yesterday, she issued a memo in which she said, you know what, we're not going to enforce that law very much. By and large, you can violate the law unless you're engaged in espionage on behalf of a foreign country. So the new Attorney General, who would be overseeing Kash Patel if he were confirmed, has already pre-announced that she won't really investigate this claim against Kash Patel, which is a serious one because it's plain he didn't file the registration requirements.
Speaking of Pam Bondi, the new Attorney General, within her first days in office, she has done everything from ordering investigations into sanctuary cities to reinstating the federal death penalty. Does she have that power?
Well, the Attorney General has a lot of power and a lot of discretionary decision-making authority. It's very likely she's going to overstep it. No one should be surprised. She got the job because she was an ardent Donald Trump supporter. She maintained that through her confirmation hearing. She should not have been confirmed. She's multiply conflicted with companies that the Department of Justice is or will be investigating. She proved herself unqualified by her devotion to Donald Trump and her defense of the coup on January 6th. But we are here where we are, and she's going to use both the legitimate discretionary authority of the Attorney General and illegitimate authority of the Attorney General. One of her memos yesterday basically informed the Justice Department workforce, hey, your job is to work for Donald Trump, and we expect you to be loyal to the president's mission and priorities. Well, that's not the job of the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is not the president's lawyer. The Department of Justice are the people's lawyers and required to uphold the laws of this country. And it's going to be a tough time in the next few years. We're going to see how vindictive she is. But the best case scenario isn't very good at all.
Public Citizen has filed a complaint with the Department of Justice and the Office of Government Ethics around President Trump, on January 17th, days before he was inaugurated, releasing an official Trump meme coin, which value skyrocketed to over $15 billion. What can you say about this?
Yeah, at a different time, this would be headline stories for a couple of weeks, but there's too much craziness and danger going on. So Trump launched this meme a couple of days before the inauguration. He's promoted it on Twitter and on Truth Social since he was inaugurated, saying, buy the meme. When you get the meme, you're essentially getting nothing. You pay what you pay. And Trump says it's not an investment. It's just support for an idea. So effectively, you're making a gift to Donald Trump. You can try to resell that gift if you want, but you're basically making a gift to Donald Trump. That's illegal for every federal employee except for the president, who can accept gifts. But the president is not permitted to solicit gifts. So we have argued that the idea that he's asking people to buy this meme, which is a valueless thing, not a security, as he says, constitutes the solicitation of a gift, and we've asked for an investigation.
Finally, I want to go back to Rob Shriver about the tactics in court and on the streets right now. Tens of thousands of federal workers have accepted the email, the resignation, resigning and being paid for the next 8 months. First of all, will they necessarily get that? Now, that's been stopped. The deadline was supposed to be last night at midnight, and a judge said no. But talk about what this means. You represent so many unions. And also, is the federal workforce one of the most diverse in the country? Is that also why it's being targeted?
Well, I think that's a good question. Certainly, we have worked over multiple administrations to make the federal workforce reflect the diversity of America through legitimate tactics like making sure we're recruiting broadly for talent. I think it's really important that Democracy Forward went to court and got this extension on the deadline, because the fork in the road offer is unprecedented. It's not consistent with the legal approaches that an administration can use to do exactly this. Why haven't they just offered federal employees early retirement across the board? Why haven't they gone through the congressionally authorized separation program that is implemented by OPM regulations? And then in addition to that, there are budgetary questions, right? We're on a continuing resolution through March 14th. What's to stop the Republican-controlled Congress in enacting a new budget from saying, we're not going to honor this agreement to pay people not to do their job? And then lastly, the American people need to ask, what is the plan for delivering essential government services? What is the plan if a bunch of national security workers take this deal, or if an entire office in a county in Iowa of USDA workers takes that deal? Who's going to help those farmers?
I want to thank you both for being with us. Rob Shriver, Senior Advisor for Democracy Forward, former Acting Director of OPM. That's the Office of Personnel Management. And Robert Weissman, Co-President of Public Citizen. Democratic ranking members of several House committees are calling for an investigation of potential national security threats posed by Elon Musk's DOGE, that's Department of Government Efficiency. This comes as the Wall Street Journal reports a 25-year-old DOGE staff member who gained access to the Treasury Department's central payment system resigned Thursday after he was linked to a deleted social media account that advocated racism and eugenics. In another apparent breach of sensitive data, CNN reports Energy Secretary Chris Wright granted a 23-year-old former SpaceX intern and DOGE staffer access to the Energy Department's IT system. In a letter Thursday, Democratic lawmakers urged action to stop DOGE by Deputy Inspectors General at the Treasury Department, the Office of Personnel Management, the Department of Education, the U.S. Agency for International Development, the General Services Administration, and the Small Business Administration. Also Thursday, House Democrats with the Congressional Progressive Caucus demanded Musk be fired from his role in the Trump administration. This is Congress members Nydia Velasquez, LaMonica McIver, and First Progressive Caucus Chair Greg Katzar.
And today we're here to say with one voice, fire Elon Musk. An unelected, unaccountable billionaire now has seemingly unlimited powers over Americans' private data and over Americans' taxpayer dollars.
Do you trust Elon Musk with your most personal financial information, tax records, your social security numbers, your financial security? I don't trust Elon Musk with this information, and I know the American people don't either.
He is trying to puppet master Trump's decisions about everything: women's bodies, immigrants' futures, our kids' education, government funding, on and on and on.
This comes as Republicans on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee blocked an effort by Democrats Wednesday to subpoena Elon Musk to appear before the panel to face questioning about his ongoing overhaul of the federal government. Our next guest, Democratic Congressmember Ro Khanna of California, represents Silicon Valley, has called on tech billionaire Elon Musk to be held accountable, but was absent from Wednesday's vote because he says he already had a scheduled meeting with Mexico's ambassador to discuss Trump's tariffs. Ro Khanna posted on X, quote, "I would have voted yes. They called a procedural vote without notice, and I, like 8 others, didn't make it there on time. Musk's attacks on our institutions are unconstitutional. He should be subpoenaed and answer to our committee. They should call the vote again with notice," he said. For more, Congressmember Ro Khanna joins us from the Cannon Rotunda at the House building on Capitol Hill. He represents Silicon Valley in California. Congressmember Khanna, thank you for joining us again. If you can start off by talking about, well, what happened, the possibility that Elon Musk would have been called on the carpet, or at least before your committee, and what you're calling for now.
Well, I'm calling for him to be subpoenaed and come before the committee. I put that statement out about 10 minutes after they had the vote, and then went to the committee and spoke out about it. And Elon Musk responded, "Don't be a dick," and we went back and forth on Twitter. But the reality is that he needs to come before the committee. I actually had said when DOGE was created, as you know, that if there's wasteful spending in the Pentagon, or if he can expose wasteful spending, then I would work to look at that, as did Bernie Sanders, as did Elizabeth Warren. But what he's doing now, which is stopping payments, is unconstitutional, and he needs to come before the committee.
This is Congressmember Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez speaking on Instagram Live Monday in a message to fellow Democrats in the Senate.
No Democrat should be voting to advance Trump's nominees while all of this stuff is going on. There has to be a political price to pay, and we have a responsibility as a party to block everything that is happening while they're setting a literal match to the federal government and giving 19-year-olds classified access, potentially classified access to the U.S. Treasury Department. So we need to start blocking every single procedural advancement on the Senate side in order to do that.
Your response, Ro Khanna, do you support what AOC is saying?
I do think we should be putting holds on the nominees like Brian Schatz has at the Secretary of State appointees, and that